When people talk about Francis Ford Coppola and his films, they usually only look at a few in particular: The Godfather Part 1, The Godfather Part 2, and Apocalypse Now. These three legendary films completely overshadow the rest of his filmography because of their immense popularity and critical acclaim. Practically every other film he's directed besides those three haven't met the very high benchmark set by a lot of his early work. A lot of people argue that he just lost touch with his craft as he grew older, which makes sense.
Everybody always picking on me.
However, not enough people talk about Coppola's personal favorite film that he's directed, The Conversation. It was released in April of 1974, 8 months before the highly anticipated Godfather Part 2. It won the top prize at Cannes that year, it's a part of the Library of Congress's National Film Registry, and it was up for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, which Coppola lost against himself for The Godfather Part 2.
Godfather Part 2, Francis Ford Coppola, Gray Fredrickson, and Frederick.
Even without the crazy recognition that his other films get, I believe The Conversation is a film that is gripping, highly inventive, and very reflective of the time that it came out in. The Conversation is a thriller film that stresses the anxieties that came with modern surveillance technology's effects on privacy. At the time of its release, surveillance technology was starting to improve to the point where it could be much more harmful to people instead of actually protecting them. The film's protagonist, Harry Call, is an embodiment of those anxieties. He's a highly skilled surveillance expert who does shady jobs for people in power. Simultaneously, he's also obsessed with protecting his own privacy. In the film, Harry does a job for a man known simply as the Director, in which he spies on a conversation between a young couple. He experiences very vague and suspicious interactions with Martin, an associate of the Director played by a pre-Star Wars Harrison Ford, and it actually takes quite some time for Harry to meet the man he's working for. Or at least the man he thinks he's working for. Through listening to the conversation tapes and developing suspicions about Martin and the Director, Harry believes that the lives of the couple are in danger. What I'm about to discuss is kinda spoiler heavy, so keep watching at your own risk. The character of Harry Call is very complex. Despite him being so obsessed with preserving his own privacy, the audience is given a lot of insight into his personal life, his thoughts, and even his own violent and traumatic visions. By restricting the audience to only Harry's range of knowledge, it puts us in his shoes as we figure out things at the same time and to the same degree as Harry. This increases the amount of suspense that is generated and the overall impact of crucial plot events. For example, Harry admits that his previous surveillance work has led to the murder of innocent people in the confession booth at church.
I've been involved in some work that I think will be used to hurt these two young people. This happened to me before. People were hurt because of my work. I'm afraid it could happen again.
Harry's past experiences cause him to get so wrapped up in the work that doesn't even involve him, and the guilt he feels drives him mad. Harry is portrayed by actor Gene Hackman, and he does a great job at making the character really come to life. Harry rarely gets emotional in the film. He's either pretty straightforward or somewhat timid, but Gene Hackman brings forth this kind of deceptive subtlety to his performance. Harry's pretty delusional. Almost all the conflict he experiences in the film is with himself and in his own head. You can really see the fear that he feels in a lot of his facial expressions and body language. He never overplays it, and the performance always feels it comes from a place of genuineness. I'd imagine both Hackman and Coppola worked really hard in nailing the portrayal of this really complex character. Through the film's narrative form, we have a certain expectation that Harry's suspicions are sound and that the people he's trying to protect actually need to be protected. This ends up adding much more significance to the twist ending because we are just as shocked as Harry when he realized he was dreadfully misunderstood about the content of the conversation he was listening to. We're also given very deep insight into the extreme lengths that Harry goes through to protect his own privacy. One recurring narrative pattern, however, is when Harry's privacy is broken. In the first scene in Harry's apartment, he gets a bottle of wine and a birthday card delivered inside his apartment from his landlord. He immediately calls them, though, and demands he gets a lock combo on his mailbox as if a birthday message should be taken as some kind of threat. This pattern comes up again as Harry is spied on through a pen that one of his surveillance buddies, Bernie, gives him, and he listens to a very personal conversation that he has with his lady friend, Meredith, one of Harry's most vulnerable moments in the film. The last moment of Harry's privacy being broken is when he learns that Martin has been spying on him ever since Harry has gotten so caught up in the conversation tapes. In the previous two situations, there was no real threat to Harry's well-being. He just got angry. He's described to be the best bar none when it comes to his surveillance skills because those skills are intertwined with the fear of his privacy being broken. Because the film sets up his first two slip-ups as not to deeply affect him in any negative way, we assume that Harry is good at keeping his privacy when it matters. However, when Harry learns that the man who he believes to have murderous intentions is spying on him, we learn our assumptions aren't always true and Harry begins living his own worst nightmare. I'd like to take a look at one of the last scenes in the film, the scene in which Harry meets the director for the first time to give him a photograph. It's a prime example of the film's use of sound, cinematography, and mise-en-scène to exaggerate Harry's anxieties when it comes to his privacy, and how it all blows up in his face once he figures out the truth. In the scene prior to Harry's visit, he tries to reach Martin to talk, but he can't and is told that Martin's people will contact him. This detail, while it may seem insignificant, shows who has more power here, and that's Martin. A short amount of time passes and the phone rings. Harry approaches it slowly and the shot is wide and empty to make Harry look small, and it reinforces the imposing feeling that Martin has over him. On the phone, Martin explains that they've been watching Harry, which awakens his fears of someone else invading his privacy. The same empty shot composition from before is used as Harry hangs up the phone. A very foreboding piano tune filled with dissonance plays to give us further insight into Harry's fearful state of mind. When Harry actually goes to meet with Martin and the director, it begins with a very low-angle establishing shot of the building they work in. Harry walks towards the building, and we don't even get a full view since it's only a portion of the building in frame. This effect from the cinematography makes the building appear very large and intimidating. The sequence continues as Harry walks through the halls of the building very observantly, but not necessarily in an inquisitive way. Harry is being observant out of fear for his privacy and, more importantly, his own life. Certain mise-en-scène elements in this sequence are reflective of Harry's transparency and inability to be private, despite the obsessive extreme lengths he goes to in trying to preserve it. Some of these elements of mise-en-scène include Harry's transparent raincoat that he's wearing and the filters in the windows in the building that block out light. These details speak to Harry's character and represent the idea of him trying to keep a private life, while current advances in technology make it impossible to put that idea into action, which perpetuates Harry's fears. Before Harry enters the director's office, he puts his ear up to the door to better hear the conversation tapes being played and ironically walks right in through a door marked private, rather than being invited in. When Harry enters the office, we're greeted with many mise-en-scène elements that add to the intimidation and danger that Harry feels from the director. Things like the weight set and the Doberman Pinscher dog are both symbols of the director's power that Harry feels he has over him. Additionally, the director has a model of the San Francisco skyline along with a telescope peering out the window in his office, which are both representative of how much better the director and Martin are at surveillance since they're keeping such a close eye on someone as private as Harry. As Harry goes about his business in the office, the tapes are still being played out loud. After Harry hands the director the photograph he came in to deliver, he asks, "What will you do to her?" as the woman's voice is being played on the tapes. The director gives no response, and the line from the man on the tape, "He'd kill us if he had the chance," is played in the background. This is no accident on Coppola's part. That auditory detail perfectly lines up with Harry's question and marks the beginning of his breaking point. There are many scenes that come before this one that showcase Harry's growing paranoia. This one, though, is the embodiment of his breaking point, and also an embodiment of the film's excellent use of mise-en-scène, cinematography, and sound that help contribute to the suspense that is built up from Harry's false theory. In the end, it's revealed that the director isn't the one to be suspicious about. Rather, the real ones to be suspicious about all along were the couple who Harry was trying to protect all the way from the beginning. As one rips through the conversation's many layers, you'll come to realize it's a very dense film. Every element of filmmaking and every decision made by directors are done for specific reasons, and that idea is never more apparent than in this film. Through its many elements, like its narrative form, mise-en-scène, unique use of sound, and cinematography, Coppola allows us to get an unfiltered view into the mind of a very disturbed man effectively. All of these elements coming together affects the major plot twist at the end, and it created one of the best thrillers in the Hollywood Renaissance. The film's style allows us to relate to Harry more, and emphasizes the themes of our diminishing privacy and how damaging it can be to get involved in someone else's business.